Hi, this is Evan Anderson with Oseberg, and I've got some more hacks for you today. So we developed an app called Full Text Search, and we developed this app to sit on top of all of our regulatory documents in addition to our courthouse records in order to help us identify certain documents that we needed to find and want to extract information from. So you can think of this almost like a Google search engine that's sitting on top of all of the regulatory documents that we have, in addition to courthouse filings. So to kind of show you how robust this application is, I'm going to show you a few things. We'll come back to this Google search bar here in a second. But the first thing I'm going to throw at you is I'm going to show you that we can search things like communitization agreements as an instrument type. These are agreements that are filed in the New Mexico courthouses. If I search them, you can see that we've got Eddy County, New Mexico. Here's a communitization agreement that was filed in November of 2019. If I click on this document, for those that are familiar with communitization agreements, oftentimes they can be a good source of information, particularly when you're trying to figure out who owns certain tracts of land. So you can see in this communitized area that you have a name for a lessor, a royalty, and a number of gross acres in that tract that lease covers effectively. And as you'd expect in this document, there's quite a few pages of details that are similar to this. If we go back to the search engine and look at some of these other documents, here we can see the EOG filing, and there again, they're listing out the tracts that are making up 100% of the area. That wasn't super informative in terms of contact information and names and addresses, so we'll try again. Here you have the working interest owners in this communitized area. And here we have the tract descriptions and the ownership in each one of these tracts. So if you're looking for non-operated working interest, this can be a good resource of information. Obviously, you still want to do your title, but it's this kind of information. And then if we wanted to structure this information, Oseberg has the ability to do that by highlighting the names. I'm just going to make up what I would describe this. We wouldn't describe this grantor name, but effectively we can go through here, and I know that's not a royalty. I know that that is the percent of overriding royalty, but so you can see how we can start structuring that data into a database very quickly. So this is a good way to find override information, working interest information, communitization agreements in New Mexico. Now let's go back to one of these docs. And let's just look up Paul Slayton. We see that Paul Slayton is brought up in a number of these documents. let's take away, we got 41 results even. And you can see that he's often named with Patricia Slayton. Let's take away communitization. And if we want, we can limit that to New Mexico. And here we have OCD filings where Paul Slayton is listed as a respondent. We've got 659 total results here. We have assignments. We have agreements. This looks like where he's a party to an operating agreement. So this could be a pretty powerful research tool where we started out by finding the name Paul Slayton in a communitization agreement. And now we have probates in Lubbock, Texas, to OCD filings in New Mexico, to joint operating agreements, and anything else that we might find. Remember, this is regulatory data and courthouse records where we're able to kind of search across all of this information. So that is just one example of how to use full text search in New Mexico. Thanks for joining me for an Oseberg hack.